Tere hommikust! Soojad tervetused Brüsselist kõikidele osallistajille. My name is Michaela Moua, and I'm the Anti-Racism Coordinator of the European Commission, and I congratulate you, the Estonian government, to this very important initiative. My apologies that I cannot be there with you in person today. As a native Finn, I know how challenging it is to talk about racial discrimination in a country where only a few people of color live. These challenges make it even more important to talk about racism, and I thank you, the organizers, for giving me the opportunity to do so today. Racism is the belief in the superiority of a particular group based on skin color or ethnic origin. It has an individual component and a structural element. It can lead to racial discrimination and racial or ethnic bias, which refers to prejudiced and stereotypical attitudes that individuals either consciously or unconsciously hold. Its structural nature places barriers in all areas of life of racialized people and impacts foundational pillars of well-being, such as education, school-to-work transition, employment, housing, health, and many more. In 2020, the European Commission adopted its first anti-racism action plan, and this was as a reaction to the global Black Lives Matter movement. With the adoption, the Commission followed numerous demands by civil society organizations and members of the European Parliament to specifically address interpersonal and structural racism in Europe. The Anti-Racism Action Plan emphasizes that everyone in the European Union should be able to enjoy their fundamental rights and freedoms and equal participation in society, irrespective of their racial or ethnic origin. However, at the same time, 60% of the respondents of the Eurobarometer perceive discrimination based on skin color and ethnic origin as frequent. That means that a huge discrepancy exists between our belief in a union of equality and the experiences of racialized people and what they experience on a daily basis. All too often, racial or ethnic origin is used as a ground to discriminate. The COVID-19 pandemic and the aftermath of terrorist attacks are just the most recent cases where blame has unjustly been directed to racialized people. People of Asian and African descent, Muslims, Jewish, and Roma people have all suffered from this intolerance. Let me illustrate this with a couple of examples. A few weeks ago, I talked to a group of visitors, and a young Black woman told me that she's seriously considering not having children with her husband. She knows that in Europe, the risk of a Black woman dying from childbirth is significantly higher than that of a white woman. We usually look at statistics and tend to forget that every number is an individual faced with difficult choices due to existing structural racism. Another experience I always make when talking to groups relating to racial profiling. Every time I talk about stops and identity checks by the police, there are one or two people in the audience of color who will tell me about their last identity check and that there was really no real reason for them to be stopped in the first place. According to the last report by the European Union Fundamental Rights Agency on being Black in the EU, every fourth Black person, so that's 26% of people of African descent, has been stopped by the police in the last 5 years, and 58% perceived the stop as racial profiling. The Anti-Racism Action Plan addresses structural racism and interpersonal racism, as well as commits the European Commission to diversify its own staff. It contains roughly 80 different measures to be implemented by the Commission and on the national member state level. The action plan foresaw the appointment of an anti-racism coordinator to liaise closely with racialized people and relay their concerns to the Commission. The coordinator also interacts with member states, the European Parliament, civil society, and academia to strengthen policy responses in the field of anti-racism and join forces with Commission services to implement the Commission's policy on preventing and combating racism. In September, we published our first implementation report, showing that we implemented most of the actions foreseen in the action plan. And this implementation report also illustrates the challenges that we continue to face and reports an increase in racism and racist rhetoric across Europe. It identified gaps and calls upon member states to join forces with the Commission in its fight against racism across Europe. Therefore, the new Commission's president, Ursula von der Leyen, announced the political guidelines for 2025 to 2029, the adoption of an anti-racism strategy. And this will follow up on the work of the Anti-Racism Action Plan. So my team and I, we're currently developing the upcoming anti-racism strategy. We're consulting stakeholders, and we're also talking to member states. And we're taking the implementation report as a foundation for the structure and the future work. We'll continue to address structural racism. We'll highlight intersectionality and address some particular phenomenon like anti-Muslim hatred. Furthermore, we'll also deepen the existing collaborations with member states, with civil society and academia. Racism is a centuries-old phenomenon. It's entrenched in our societies, in decision-making, in its structures, and daily lives. Fighting racism is a long-term commitment that needs all of us. So I call on you to join this fight to ensure equal opportunities for all of us in the Union of Equality. Suur tänu selle võimaluse eest täna teie poole pöörduda ja soovin teile head konverentsi. Thank you.